evolution. Our notion of money as a thing gives credence to the superstition that it must be necessarily scarce in the same way land and precious metals are scarce resources. Why must money be scarce? Why must money be scarce? Why? Why must money be scarce like land, which is scarce, or water, natural resources? Why must this paper be scarce? It is something worth reflecting on. Some people might say, oh, if you flood the whole world with money, there will be inflation. But that is not a satisfactory answer to the issue of scarcity or non-scarcity of money. Never in the history of the world has there been so much money. Yet, the central banks around the globe are flooding the world with trillions of dollars, causing a deluge of money. Never has it been cheaper to make a loan, to take a loan, especially in the West. To save money, you know, saving of money. To save money in the bank today is like burning it because of the very low interest rates, 0.01%. If you go and keep money in the bank, that's what the bank will give you. This translates to about 1 cent for every 100 euros per annum. If you have, that means about 1,000 crowns, you will only be receiving about 1 crown every year on that year 1,000 crowns. Thus, keeping money in the bank has become worthless. Consequently, some people no longer keep their money in the banks, preferring to keep it in a safe place at home. In Europe, it is the European Central Bank that is responsible for the very low interest rates on savings in its aims to achieve price stability. Investors and banks can easily get their hands on cheap money. It has become very easy for them to buy and sell companies and make astronomical, mind-blowing profits. Workers in these companies have become pawns in the hands of these financial sharks. While the states, banks, private equity, hedge funds, and the super rich can borrow massive sums at very low interest rates, this is not the same with ordinary people who have very high interest rates when they go to take loan from banks. The cheap money in circulation goes into shares, stocks, and real estate, which continues to rise in price and value. This situation continues to widen the gap between the rich and the poor. To give you a taste of how this game plays out, let us look at a deal by KKR, a bank that's a Switzerland's company. A deal is closed with SEB from Switzerland, which is a household company. A couple of years ago, KKR bought its company was bought at 660 million euros. It used 100 million euros of its own capital via a subsidiary company located in a tax haven. 4 years later, it sold for 1.6 billion euros to SEB, thus making a profit of 940 million euros return on investment, which is about 800% after paying off the loan which it got at extremely low interest rates, loans for almost nothing. This type of deal could only be possible because there is a deluge of cheap money in the world. To close a deal, investment brokers receive 2% for managing whatever stock you have. They receive 2% for managing the portfolio, while they have a cut of 20% on any interest made on any deal closed. 20%. If you buy a house or what, they take 20% almost, these big investors. If no gain is made, they do not lose anything. And if there are losses, the original investor covers all the losses, while the investment brokers go home without bearing any cost. This increases the appetite for big and dangerous deals that take advantage of the poor in the greed game that we have in buying companies. For example, you hear sometimes that this football club is being sold for these billions of dollars. You heard that this company is being sold. Why are they selling them like that? They are selling them because they get loans at very cheap rates. These big investors, investors and other hedge fund holders, they get these loans and they buy this at astronomically low interest rate. And then within a couple of years, they sell off to make more money because the banks are giving them this money. Let us take Bill Gates, the richest person on earth, as an example. He has a total fortune of 65 billion euros. That is the value of his market shares. Meanwhile, the world's market value is 5 trillion euros, whereas the real value of all goods and services created in the world is 75 trillion euros. At the same time, the world's debt is far higher at 705 trillion euros. This shows that money is no longer related to real goods. Money is not about goods and services any longer, as it was in the past. Now, how is this to be understood? The answer lies in the action of US President Nixon in 1971. 1971, if you remember, that was a time for the Vietnam War. The US president, as he was prosecuting a war, there was shortage of money. They had capital crunch. And OPEC had also raised the price of petroleum products. What Nixon did was to flood the world with money. He requested the United States Mint and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing to switch on the money printing machine. One of the causes of the capital crunch, as we said, was OPEC raising the petroleum price. Until this decision in 1971, the global economy was stable and currencies were covered in gold. Currencies were covered in gold. Let us now divide a little bit. You know that Gaddafi was killed for this particular thing, because Gaddafi was always advocating for a monetary system where the value of money is equal to gold, where you could only be said to be rich by the quantity of gold that you have that will help you to transact in the international market. And that was what he was saying, that the dinar, which was then the gold for in Libya, should be used as a value. And he was trying to gather people, countries, to make gold the denominator instead of the United States currency, which is no longer equal to any goods or services other than the faith people have in the dollar. If we say $1 is equal to this, it becomes that. But dollar itself is nothing. It has no value. It has only the value that we have given to it, or the euro or the crowns that we have today. What happened? The real economy was imbalanced by then. The amount of money available could be compared to the amount of gold. This triggered what President Nixon did, triggered a need for a new finance model, which was given birth by the banks. They now wanted to make money with money alone, not with goods any longer. This gave birth to the global finance industry of this day. That is the credit cards, the retirement funds, insurances, stocks, shares, bonds, and all that. In the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher deregulated the banks in London. Bill Clinton did the same in Wall Street. Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder of Germany bought into this philosophy. Money is to earn money. Deregulation is a monetary policy, of course, that enriches the rich and makes investors richer. Money is no longer simply a byproduct of value creation. How is money created? I asked this question before. Sadly, many of us are grossly ignorant of how money is created and by whom. At best, we think that money is only created by the government, the central bank of the different countries of the world. This is half-truth. Today, it is not how it is. Today, private banks are the ones creating most of the money, not the central banks. If you go, for example, to SCB to take out a loan, and they approve that loan, money is created immediately. Oftentimes, we think that banks work with the savings that people have lodged with them. That means I take the money I have and put in the bank, and when Jen comes and wants to take out a loan, that the bank will now go to the money that we have already saved, people have saved, and they lend Jen money from that particular savings. But no, banks never work that way. Banks do not take what you have saved with them and loan to another person to make interest on that. That was how it worked in the past. But these days, what happens? Europe's earliest modern style banks, we will come to that question of how they create this money today. Europe's earliest modern style banknotes, with each note what fixed sum, were introduced in 1661 by the Bank of Stockholm, established in 1657. This is very interesting, that the banknotes of today, it is credited to a man, a Latvian born Dutch, who came to Sweden around 1645 or 47, and he became, in fact, the first Sweden bank director. And he was the one who founded the Bank of Stockholm that later on became the Riksbanken, the Central Bank of Sweden. So this man was the first who ever printed banknotes. And at that time, as you know, at the beginning, individuals and companies printed their own banknotes. They printed money. Companies, big companies printed money. They had their own money. It was only later that there was a coordination, a harmonization, where now the government took over this process and centralized it with their banks, central banks. And central banks were now the only ones having the possibility to mint, to create money, to print money. Even at that time, they had to fight, as they still fight today, counterfeiters. You know, even the US services, state services, their main function is to fight those who are counterfeiting the US dollar. If you go to Colombia and even to China and North Korea, it is said that a lot of places there are state-run printing presses for counterfeiting the US dollars, because that is the gold of today. And if human beings are printers who are making this money, then who are printing the money, others can equally have the technology to print it. And that is why you see that the countries are trying always to put fixtures in their banknotes so that they make it very difficult for counterfeiters to counterfeit. Otherwise, Jane or James or Luke could go and print if they have the competence and the skills of printing to print this money, and they print it in hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And they become rich overnight. And there are people in our world who are doing this even today. Many erroneously think that the money private banks loan out come from savings these banks hold for others. This is not the case. In fact, the two activities of saving and loaning have nothing in common. When the bank gives out a loan, it is never from the savings people have kept with them. The fact is that when a bank gives out a loan, it creates it from nothing. How does it work? Private banks create money out of nothing from a process called deposit money creation. Deposit money creation. And that is why bank is highly regulated. For them to give you license to become a banker, to own a bank, because they know you are big banks, they create money anyhow at will. This is the way it works. When a customer approaches a bank for a loan, the bank is required by the central bank to deposit between 1 to 3% of the loan amount with the central bank. In return, it is allowed to transfer by just a press of a button, a switch of a button. That's an equivalent amount to the account of the borrower. And the bank is allowed to keep all the profits made from that particular transaction. For example, you need 10,000 euros in loan. The bank will deposit 100 euros with the central bank. This means each time a customer goes to the bank to take out a loan for whatever purpose, mortgage or car loan or renovation loan, money is created at the push of a button. This gives the banks free rein. They create electronic money as they wish, no longer by mint as it was in the past. We learn from this that money is not, after all, neutral. The stars of the new financial industry wrote the rules of the game, and that is why money is pouring into the pockets of bankers and finance institutions. How are they doing this? They use the process of leveraging. Leverage may be described as a borrowing to invest. This is because this is the power of using bank money to make more profits. This is helping people to generate more wealth. Often, people borrow when the interest rates are low. Private equity and hedge funds are cashing on this cheap money, buying companies with borrowed money to generate spectacular profits. We see this in all areas of life. Selling of football clubs, players, and all that. This is encouraging speculators to be playing games with human life. Therefore, I have always believed there is something morally and ethically questionable about this global economic structure. About 90% of our money is just numbers saved in a computer somewhere. 90%. They are not in cash. They are numbers somewhere. You know, if you follow the stock market, exchange market, you see they are just figures, they are not money. As we have seen, Bill Gates' market value, his what? It's not in cash. They are simply figures. That's what is believed to own. So there is nowhere that kind of amount is just stashed somewhere for somebody to receive. It is simply electronic money. As we see today, that even money is evolving to the cryptocurrencies of Bitcoin and others that are confusing us all the more. And many of us do not know, in fact, what the hell is happening when it comes to money. We are just watchers. We stand by the wayside and we're watching what is happening, trying to understand. The more we look, the more difficult it is for us to understand.